the next speaker, Sneha Parahar. She's a senior engineer based out of our Frankfurt office in Germany. And Sneha has a wealth of engineering experience building complex backend systems. She's going to talk today about leveraging Lambda architectures to enable the handling of huge amounts of data in near real-time applications. So Sneha, I'll take it away.
Thank you. So first of all, I would like to just mention that this is my first XT Summit as an attendee and also as speaker. It was really inspiring to hear all the speakers before me. And in my presentation, I just intend to bring my learnings and experience as a backend developer, developing all these big data applications for banks and IoT in my career so far. The agenda of my presentation would be to just see the big data challenges in the light of the modern day challenges, and then just address the how, what, and why around Lambda architecture, and just see like what lies ahead of it. So in this slide, which is about big data challenges, here there are some stats which are from the most popular social media platforms out there. Every single day, we as users, I'm sure every one among us use one or many or maybe all of these social media platforms, and also several IoT devices, and create and contribute to these data traffic which gets created. Now, just imagine developing a smart home solution where you have like multiple IoT devices connected, and there is a tremendous amount of data being generated by them in the term of volume, variety, and also the speed at which it's approaching. So that brings us to realize that the complexity of the big data applications is increasing every single day. And as we saw in several other talks before today, that there are a lot of futuristic applications which would be even more data intensive. Then we can totally be sure that the complexity would even increase by every single day. So just by taking a step back and seeing like what a typical big data IoT solution looks like. So mostly it is handling following types of workloads that is stated here. What this essentially means is that we have either a big data solution handles historical data or real-time data, or just like tries to take out some insights from data, or uses some, like we saw in this, in some few talks before, take out some important metrics from data using AI and machine learning, and predict some metrics out of these data. So most of the big data solution may be starting with either of these workloads and eventually would go for one or more of them. So just to understand that what are the concepts of like developing a big data system, let's just take a very simple and relatable example of a parking lot tracker. The idea would be that we will take this application and would try to see that the methods which are known to us, like how we try to solve them, solve this problem with the methods which are known to us, and see like if the workload which we saw before, if they increase, then how the methods fail us. So idea of this application would be that when a car is moving, a user is in a car, he wants to know the parking lots around him and what is the availability. So if there is a parking lot which shows him some few slots, then he would drive to that parking lot successfully. Let's just, for the fun sakes, let's say that there's a Bob developer and he's trying to solve this problem, knowing the most traditional way of solving this problem. So it starts with a traditional database, which actually consists of like RDBMS solution, having tables and storing data in the form of rows and columns. Here, there would be a table like storing the parking data information, and there would be a column with current status, and every single time a parking lot status would update, there would be a update to this table. So he has done with these changes, he puts the application live, And the first thing which he would realize that there would be write timeouts. So what would that mean is that there would be several parking lots. Their status would be changing at the same time, and they all would want to update the database also at the same time, and which would eventually lead him into having write timeouts. To handle this, he would come up with a solution like adding a queue and a worker node. So the queue's job would be just collecting all the write events together, and then the worker node would just combine all these events together in one single insert and write to the database. This sounds good, right? And further, but as in how the data grows, we realize that whatever events which we're wanting to write, they are all sitting in the queue, and they're not getting picked up by the worker node soon enough. So what we would do is we would scale our system. By that, what we would mean is like we would add more worker nodes so that more events could be picked out from the queue and written to the database. But as you see in the picture, there's a clear problem that there is a database bottleneck. Like all the events are still being written to one single database node. So what that eventually leads us to the next slide, which would be like, just to handle that problem of a database bottleneck, we would start using the sharding. By sharding, what we essentially mean is adding multiple database nodes, and the data is distributed among all of them. So far, so good, and everything is fine. We start working, the application is live again, and everything is good. And we have like a lot of customers are giving us feedback, and some of the customers tell us like, okay, so if I drive to a parking lot and I realize that the availability which was shown to me has already been taken, then it's not good for me. So could you give me a feature that I could define a minimum amount of availability which I want to look for when I'm looking for parking lots around me? So in this case, what you want is like you want to aggregate the data per this operation. For this, you are wanting now to run some aggregate operations on your data. So that means like in our sharded solution, we would want to run this aggregate operation on each and every database node, and then eventually combine all the results and give it back to the user. That would mean that what we are trying to do here is we are trying to do distributed querying, and that would bring its own set of issues with it, like fault tolerance, corrupted data. And imagine like, just to take an example, like if one of the database node is down and he comes back and the node comes back in after some time, there would be 2 points of truth in the system. So we would have this extra set of issues that we would now have to handle. That brings us to, so say our Bob, the developer, again, he thinks like, starts raking his brain and thinks like, is there any solution out there? He has heard about NoSQL solutions before. So he thinks about, okay, what is these non-relational database? What is this NoSQL database? And then he lands up into this CAP theorem. So this CAP theorem is actually proposed by Eric Brewer. It is like since a long time. And what it essentially means is like CAP is corresponding to consistency, availability, and partition. What it means is that any distributed database system could offer 2 of these properties out of the 3. So at any point, any database solution would only be providing only 2 of these properties. So at this point of time, we know that even if we want all the features for our application, either our solution is to take a NoSQL solution, adapt it to our needs, and then integrate into our application, or the easiest solution is to use multiple database technologies together. So multiple storage technologies we would want to use together. That would also help us like adding more features at this point of time we would be careful, and we would be about what we would want to add in the future in application, what kind of features we would want to support in the future. So at this point of time we know we want multiple technologies, and but how do we wire these technologies together, and like what technology to use for what? Like that is the question which would come up in our minds. This was the same state of Nathan Mars. He was developing backend applications for Twitter. And at that time, he came up with the same kind of dilemma. What he did was he solved the problem. And then he also came up with a design principle with his findings, with his learnings, which was Lambda architecture. What he means about with Lambda architecture is that any big data problem, you could just compose it into three main components. You decompose the problem into these three main components, and the result would be that you would be able to have run arbitrary functions on arbitrary amount of data in real time. How it helps us is that it does not talk about any technology here. It just specifies the type of the nature of technology we should be using. Also, the benefit of this design principle is that it helps us to use or address the historical data in the and also the real-time data. Just to understand what each and every component is responsible for, let's take a little bit detailed look into it. So the batch layer. The batch layer is the layer which would be responsible for storing the entire raw data set in an immutable append-only form. What does that mean? That it would allow to only add inserts in your system. So the data could only be added to your system. It cannot be updated. So data would stay as it is. The benefit of this is that if your system goes down or something like that, or if you're running some complex operation on the data, as you have not manipulated the data, you always have the raw data at your hand. So you could again make some computations on it, but you always save the effort of corrupting your data or handling the human induced faults. Here, the batch layer would also be responsible for the historical data, so like the cold data in the system. So this data could also be the static data or could reside in this batch layer. Serving layer, its responsibility is to run some complex operations that I just mentioned before. Imagine a banking application which has really very big complex operations running on the raw data. All those complex operations could sit in the serving layer, and the output of it would be some batch views. So there would be some what essentially means that there would be some batch applications running in the serving layer, which would run all these complex operations for us and create some batch views for us. The last layer is the speed layer. Speed layer, as the name suggests, it handles all the real-time data which is flowing into the system. It would also do the same kind of complex operations that we want on the real-time data and create real-time views for us. So in entirety, this is how a Lambda architecture, reference architecture would look like. So the new data which would be flowing into the system would always be directed to both batch layer and speed layer. Batch layer would store it in the master data set. Serving layer would create the batch views out of it. Queries could be always directed to speed layer, serving layer, both or either of them. Here, the added benefit is that we can have different timestamps defined for the batch views. So what that means is you can create batch views in every 10 minutes, or also at the end of a day, at the end of a month, at the end of a year. And also this timestamp could be different than the timestamp which we defined for the real-time view. The real-time views would be depending on how recent you want your data to be, you would define a timestamp for it. So maybe it would be something like 2 minutes or 3 minutes of timestamp. That frequent real-time views would be created out of the speed layer. The technologies which would be in each of these layers is free of one's choice. So one could decide on his own which technologies fits the purpose of it, serves the purpose best for him. Some of the technologies which are frequently used, just to give an example, the batch layer could have something like a Cassandra database behind it. Serving layer could have something like Apache Spark, and speed layer could have something like Apache Kafka, which is like a streaming engine. It allows you to like have real-time events flowing in. So let's go back to a parking lot example and see how and what benefit we get by leveraging the Lambda architecture. So here in our case, in the batch layer, we would let the static data like location data, like all the maps or all the city information, all the street information, all that static information would sit in this batch layer. The new parking lot availability information would also sit in this parking lot master data. And as you see in the serving layer and real-time layer, depending on the timestamp defined, the data, the views would be created. So in this example, I've shown is that at timestamp T3, the parking lot P1 has an availability 100. And the real-time views, which has a different timestamp, does not have any update for this parking lot P1. So what you see is that when a query like just find me latest data for all the parking lots, at that point of time, the whatever complex operation has to be done is already being done for P1 in the T3 timestamp. So if the batch view was created like 10 minutes ago, it's still there for you. And as the data did not change, we are not doing the recomputation on for this data. So we are very cleverly doing the computations on the data as well. Just doing computations on those data which are changed for us. And this also helps us to, like respond to the queries with very low latencies. And as you see, like the trends and all future predictability or the machine learning integration can all leverage with the batch views, which you would be creating at the end of month, year, and so on. And this is how the parking lot availability would be solved using Lambda architecture. And I'm sure like I have sold you guys like Lambda architecture is the way of solving any big data solution. If somebody disagrees with me, then I say that he's totally right. The reason being that big data solutions are normally does not have all big data solutions does not have the same kind of challenges or same kind of requirements for them. So there is no one solution fit all, and that's why this one single Lambda architecture design principle is also can also be just used as a guideline. Definitely, it solves problems in some cases. In some cases, it would also have its own limitations. Like you see here, that we would have the challenge of having multiple technologies here, and also some computations would be repeated in the batch layer and also in the speed layer. So this brings me to the end part of the presentation, like what lies ahead of Lambda architecture. So like I mentioned that Lambda architecture is a reference guidelines, but there's one benefit out of Lambda architecture is that it has now defined terminologies for designing big data solutions. So now people are using the same terminologies when they are designing, when they are coming up with new design principles. That's why you see them as variations of Lambda architecture. They are popularly called as variations of Lambda architecture. One such is Kappa architecture, where it is more aligned for real-time systems, stream processing systems. It does not have a batch layer in it. It just has the speed layer and serving layer. Same goes for Delta architecture, where somebody has come up with a new design principle where he wants to tweak a technology or find a technology fit for the purpose. I think Apache Storm is one such technology to leverage it for batch and speed layer both. So these are my learnings and these are my findings for this topic. And I would love to get in touch with others who have experienced using either of these design principles or some other design principles, solve some big data like a problem with some innovative solution or with some good design. I would love to connect with those people and get more educated. So that's my time, guys. Thanks a lot.